Welcome to Bike News, the monthly series here on the Mr. Flyer, where we take a look back at what's been going on in the world of motorcycles here in the UK, this time for the month of April 2024. Hey kids, it's Mr. Flyer here, hope you're well, and welcome back to Bike News. Cannot believe yet another month has flown past. Where do they go? I do not know. It's about time we had some decent weather here in the UK, isn't it? Anyway, let's not get onto that subject. What I've got, 4 papers, loads of stories to get through, so grab yourself a brew, let's crack on with Bike News. Right, first story that caught my eye this month then, Scouts Reborn, Indian launch all new 5-strong Scout cruiser lineup for 2024. So cruisers, mixed opinions on cruisers often get on the channel. Some people love them, some people hate them. I'm kind of on the fence. Some I like, some I don't like. But I definitely appreciate the engineering in most of them. And I have to say, when it comes to the classic cruisers, I think that they have to be American. The BMW R18, amazing bit of engineering that it is, it just doesn't work for me because it's not American. I think if you're going to have a cruiser, it has to be American. So it's got to be a Harley or an Indian. And again, in my experience, I've found that I just prefer the Indians. So to see the Indian have relaunched their Scout cruiser setup for 2024 is of interest to me. So 5 models here. It says here, Indian are charging it to 2024 with a ground-up redesign of their Scout cruiser lineup. The Scout name is big business for Indian, and they equated to 40% of sales last year. As you might expect, they've not done the redesign by halves, with a new 60-degree 1250cc double overhead cam liquid-cooled V-twin engine and tubular steel chassis used to produce 5 fresh model variants, comprising the 101 Scout, Scout Bobber, Sport Scout, Super Scout and Scout Classic. So yeah, these look good. I rode the Sport Scout a little while ago, if I remember. I'll put a link in the corner up at Crazy Horse in Bury St Edmunds. And although it's called a Sport Scout, which just seems like, how can that be? That just sounds like a contradiction in terms, doesn't it? It actually was a really nice ride, and I thought looked really good with the little cowling on the front. They've still got the Sport Scout in the lineup, but now the 101 Scout has that same cowling on it. It looks absolutely a corker. It's also one of the most expensive of the lineup. That one comes in at £16,095, but I think it looks good. Anyway, so yeah, guilty as charged for liking Scout cruisers, I say, and maybe I'll get a go on some of these new ones perhaps in the summer, we'll see. Anyway, that's first story it leapt out. Next one, going from one end of the size range to another, MASH Smash Out 50s. See what MCN have done there with the headline, very clever. French firm MASH have revealed a new air-cooled 4-stroke Scrambler 50 model, complete with a 4-speed gearbox, with a UK price of £2,299. I'll say that again, £2,299, dead cheap this. It comes in brown or black and features a 49cc engine. MASH are claiming 176 miles per gallon, meaning you could theoretically do 543 miles from one tank of E10. Machines feature a kickstart for some old school charm. They're ready to ride, they weigh 105 kilograms. So I'm not saying 50cc makes an awful lot of sense actually on the roads anymore. I think it's probably a bit underpowered, but what a laugh one of these would be. Kickstart, only £2 grand, 105 kilograms, gonna feel like a bicycle. They look great. I just think it's a proper bit of fun. Maybe if you've got a bit of land or something, an old field you can ride around on, one of these would be an absolute hoot. Not sure I want to ride one on the road. Interested in your views on that though, whether you think 50cc is actually enough. Maybe in town it would be viable. And at £2,299, if you lived in the city, cheaper than a train season ticket, isn't it? What an absolute winner. Anyway, I like the look of that. I just thought I'd point that out. We very rarely cover 50cc motorcycles here on the channel. So yeah, that was possibly a first actually. Right, next story, a letter here, which just I found interesting. Why no comms? This is a letter from somebody called Ian Craig, or an email that he sent into MCN. He said, it always seems odd that given the high level of technical expertise involved in the sport, no one appears to have found a way to communicate verbally with riders in MotoGP or World Superbike during actual racing. This technology is commonplace in most levels of car racing, drivers even being able to speak to the TV commentators in British touring cars while the race is going on. Very good point that Ian makes. Goodness knows why they haven't managed to do that. Lots of people ride with comms, don't they? Just use the same technology, but there's clearly some reason why they don't do that in bike racing. But what I found interesting about the letter was the fact that in British touring cars, TV commentators actually speak to the drivers during the race. I mean, that's incredible. Can you imagine that? On a bike race or Formula One, actually the commentators talking to the drivers. Brilliant. So that was a bit of fun. Right, next up, the first group review from the last month. Peak Performers, the new KTM 1390 Super Duke R Evo battles rivals on twisty Peak District roads. This is up against the Aprilia Tuono V4 Factory 1100 and the Ducati Streetfighter V4S. All bikes that I absolutely love, although I have criticised the new KTM Super Duke R because of the looks of that light. You either love it or hate it. To me, it just looks like it's been in a crash and the perspex has come off and hasn't been replaced. But anyway, it's still no doubt a lovely bike to ride. I've enjoyed riding it in the past. I just don't like this current iteration the way it looks. The Streetfighter V4S I absolutely love. That is one of my favourite bikes of the moment. I would definitely have one of those in my garage if I was starting again, had unlimited funds and unlimited space. And then the Tuono V4 Factory always does well in these group reviews. So I'd be interested to see what MCN have said here. But my point really though of pointing these out is, yes, they're lovely bikes and they're incredibly performant. They're amazing to ride, but they are really, really fast on the road. And do they really make, a bit like we're having a debate 5 years ago about do sports bikes on the road make sense? Do these naked bikes now make sense, these really big ones? I've just been riding today, for example, the new Yamaha MT-09. Now that's a middleweight bike with a 890cc triple engine, and that thing is a beast. It absolutely begs you to ride it fast. It's an absolute loon, really great fun. And to think, you know, you could jump on one of these and it's going to be even more of that. I just think it's, well, for me personally, somebody with no self-discipline, a bit unsafe. Which is why I tend to avoid these sort of bikes on these days on bike reviews and stuff, because I just ride it like an idiot all the time. I'm going to hurt myself or someone else. Anyway, do these bikes make sense on the road is I think what I'm saying. They definitely make more sense than a sports bike because they're more comfortable. But even these now are getting super performant, aren't they? Now, let's see what the verdict was out of interest of those four. It says here, this is interesting, who's writing this? Nevesy. The Aprilia is still king, says Nevesy. KTM's new 1390 Super Duke R Evo is more refined than ever. Its bigger V-twin engine is now so smooth it feels more like a V4. It's more playful and cheaper than the hugely competent but serious Ducati, but it still can't match the all-round class act that is now the Aprilia. It's getting on now, but Tuono's wailing V4 engine, plush ride and heavily front end are hard to beat, and it's also way cheaper to buy too. So let's look at the prices. The KTM 19,599, the Ducati 23,495, the Aprilia 16,700, so an awful lot cheaper. And according to Nevesy, the better bike to ride. Looks great as well. I've never ridden, I don't think I've ever ridden a full V4 Tuono Factory 1100. I do like the look of them, and you can get them for bargain prices. So, interesting verdict there. Right, last story, the first paper. New CBR 650R is a clutchless wonder. Now, this is a review of the first of Honda's 650 clutchless bikes. They've come out with this thing called the E-Clutch. Let me read you what it says here. Honda's new E-Clutch 650 is an effective tool for everyday riding. It would be easy to be disappointed by Honda's relatively minimal updates to their 2024 CBR 650R. But the real magic has happened below those new sharper fairings, where there's a little slice of new technology, the E-Clutch, which allows for semi-auto riding without you needing to use the lever at all. So is it worth the extra £100 and 3 kilograms? So it's not an awful lot extra then for the E-Clutch version. And yeah, this is different to the DCT, the dual clutch transmission that Honda do on things like the Africa Twin and indeed the Goldwing I have, which effectively makes the bike an automatic. You just twist the throttle and away you go. With this, with the E-Clutch, you do have to still use the gear lever, so you still use it up and down, a bit like a quick shifter. But unlike a quick shifter, when you come to a stop, you don't have to pull the clutch in. Although there is still a clutch on the bike if you want to use it. I'm not entirely sure in what situation you would use the clutch in this case, but anyway, I'll find out soon because I'm going to be getting an E-Clutch bike in next month. I'll talk a bit about that in parish notices later. So I'll find out, but yeah, very interesting to see that Honda are going this way. It's interesting that other bike manufacturers don't do it. I mean, Honda, as far as I know, are the only people that are doing this. They're the only people with DCT, and in certain situations, DCT on the Honda Goldwing, for example, makes complete sense. It makes for a very relaxing ride. And on a sports type bike, it also may make as much sense as a quick shifter does. It just gives you that release of not having to remember to pull the clutch in when you come to a stop. Anyway, it'll be very interesting to ride a bike with an E-Clutch and see what we make of that. Interested in your comments below in whether you think E-Clutch is just a gimmick or whether it's something you'd like to see on more bikes. Oh, bourbon is the biscuit of choice for this bike news. Shouldn't have done that. Right, first story, second paper, MV Get Dirty. Now this looks really nice. MV Agusta enter the hard-fought and venture market with a new £21,800 Enduro Veloce. And well, I just think this looks beautiful. It is expensive. But if you don't like the look of the new GS, and many of us don't, then maybe this is something to consider, because I think this one looks absolutely handsome. It says here, MV Agusta have thrown their hat into the adventure bike ring with the launch of their all-new Enduro Veloce. The price for the Enduro Veloce has been confirmed at 21,800, although a release date in dealers is yet to be announced. It's powered by a 931cc triple, love a triple me, puts out 122 brake horsepower and 75 foot-pounds respectively. Fully fueled, the Enduro Veloce tips the scales at 224 kilograms. The bike is said to offer tech not found on competitors. So that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, number one, it looks lovely. Number two, it's very expensive. Number three, it's light. That's good compared to other similar adventure bikes at 224 kilograms, fully fueled. It's not hugely powerful at 122 brake horsepower, but it is a nice thing, isn't it? Would you be tempted by one of those? I think I might be. I think it looks really lovely. Don't know what the extra tech is that others have. It's got 870mm seat height as well, so it's quite tall, so that might rule me out. Anyway, there we go. Nice looking thing. Good to see MV Agusta getting into that market. Right, next up. Now this is one of these things that slightly annoys me. Scoots for grown-ups. English mobility manufacturer Swifty Scooters have launched what's claimed to be the first ever road legal stand-on scooter for the private market. £3,499 will get you a Swifty Go GT500, and it will shift riders and luggage up to 120 kilograms to a top speed of 24 miles an hour with a range of 25 miles. The CBT or motorcycle licence is required, a minimum of third-party insurance, and motorcycle helmet are required to ride on UK roads. I just cannot see. Would you fancy one of these? I can't see these selling very well. Number one, they'll be sold as legal to use on UK roads, and then people will ride them without a motorcycle licence and without helmets. And if you have got a motorcycle licence, are you going to jump on one of these scooters? I mean, it's not even particularly small looking and fold up, is it? It's almost the size of a bicycle. Disastrous. I predict that won't be around for too long. Or am I just being a miserable old git? Don't fancy that at all. Okay, next up, Baby Bobber. Honda Rebel rivaling CFMoto 450 CLC arrives for 2024. Now, CFMoto, Chinese manufacturer, but they seem to be being quite critically acclaimed with their last few bikes, and that they're being taken quite seriously by journalists and riders alike. I've never ridden a CFMoto yet, but that will change soon. But this one looks nice. Let's read what it says. CFMoto are preparing to take on Honda and Kawasaki with their all-new 450 CLC parallel twin cruiser. Priced at $5,599, the choice of black or red, the A2 licence-friendly bobbers will roll into dealerships from May 2024. Ready to go up against Honda's popular 6399 CMX500 Rebel range and Kawasaki's new 5999 Eliminator 500. It's got a 690mm seat height, so nice and low as cruisers tend to be. Tips and scales at 181 kilograms with fluids. It's got a 449cc liquid-cooled DOHC unit producing acclaimed 43.6 brake horsepower. So not particularly powerful bike, but it does look quite nice. Be interesting to see how that does. Looking at the pricing though, it's it's not a million miles away from the Kawasaki Eliminator. I wonder how many people will opt for this, a Chinese bike that doesn't have a track record of reliability yet, against the Kawasaki, which we can trust is probably going to be quite reliable. Going to be interesting to see how CFMoto do in the next few years. They've got some great bikes coming out now, particularly for me in the sort of adventure and off-road type areas. They look really good. So I'm looking forward to riding my first CFMoto soon, and I shall report back. Right, out and about. This is where MCN go and try out some bikie cafes, something that's very dear to my heart because I do that quite a lot, both not only with my friends Jeff and Dan, but also with Mrs. Flyer on a regular basis. And this one, doubly close to my heart, because I've gone to visit an airfield cafe at Turweston, somewhere I know pretty well. It says here, we're all petrol heads here. Take a flying visit to this brilliant airstrip cafe. So it's called the Flight Deck, and it's at Turweston Flight Centre. It's actually just below the control tower when you go to Turweston. If you're out in that area, it's definitely worth a visit to watch the planes landing, sample the food, and enjoy the cafe. I mean, I fly in and I've ridden in as well. It says here, it was while MCN was testing the mighty TTS Superbuser that we discovered the hidden gem that is Turweston Aerodrome's Flight Deck Cafe. The cafe sits in the control tower and has been running for 7 years. According to Chris, the Flight Deck has a proper biker cafe vibe and everyone is welcomed. If anyone is walking past, I'll have a chat and we'll talk bikes. If they're interested in aviation, they'll be given a quick guided tour, says Chris. Chris is the man that mans the radio there. Spoken to him many times as I've flown him. And he's also a Missenden Flyer viewer. So hello, Chris. Great that you've been featured in MCN this month. So well done you, and hope to get to come see you soon, either by air or by bike. In fact, I think there's talk that our next biker scram may be up to Turweston. So hopefully we'll try and get that done this year. Anyway, so yeah, go and visit Turweston Airfield and their fabulous cafe if you fancy something a little bit different on your ride out. Can't recommend that enough. Right, final story in the second paper, Roaring Roadsters. Now, I love a retro. I particularly like a Roadster type retro, and here's two of my favourites. The BMW, what's now called the R1290, which is a bit of a tongue twister, but it's the bike that replaces the old R90. And favourite of mine, the Triumph Speed Twin 1200. I'm biased, I own a Speed Twin, I love that bike, but I do love them both actually. If I didn't already have a boxer engined bike in my GS, then I'd probably have an R90, the original 90 I think. Anyway, let's see, I rode the R1290 recently. I'll put a link in the corner if you haven't seen that video and you want to. And of course, I know the Speed Twin very well, being an owner myself. Let's see what the verdict is from MCM. This is John Urry. He says, great looking and brimming with spirit. These two more than deliver in terms of performance, but do so with charm and character rather than sheer brute force. Actually, I slightly disagree with that, because both of them feel like they want to rip your arms out if you really open them up. But don't be fooled. These two are quick bikes. Just because they look genteel doesn't mean to say they are. After a quick blast on the R12, you may well be left undecided on its appeal. It's not an instantly comforting bike like the Speed Twin, and certainly has its quirks. The Triumph is undeniably the more polished product. Perfectly set up for UK roads, the Speed Twin is a delight to ride. Well, I definitely agree with that. As much as we both love the Triumph, we'd opt for the BMW though, simply because it turns every ride into an event with its more visceral nature. That's interesting. So they're saying that the character, I think is what they're saying, in the BMW is what wins it over for them. Well, I think both bikes have got plenty of character. I think from a pure looks point of view, perhaps the BMW has it. And maybe from a ride point of view as well, that R12, when I rode it, the R1290 I should say, not the R12, which is a different variant now, the R1290 rode very, very nicely indeed. Although, in hindsight, looking back on the ride, I do think I prefer the looks of the original R90, the straightforward vanilla bike. I used to like that, I saw somebody refer to it as a Hoover tube, I think. The airbox thing that came out the side of the old bike I really liked. Don't get that on the new one. And I think it's lost something in its looks now, whereas the old one was lovely. The Speed Twin, of course, I love. I've got one of those, no intention of getting rid of that bike. Bags of character, bags to go. It's a Triumph, it's great. Triumph in name and nature. So there we go, two bikes I love. Right, next paper. First story, Arc back into liquidation. Now, do you remember Arc? These are like a boutique British motorcycling brand that made the bike, I think it was called Vector, and it looks like they're about to go bust, which is just such a shame to see, but possibly not a surprise considering the sorts of bikes they're making. It says here, commentary-based luxury electric brand Arc, responsible for the £98,000 hub steering Vector, have announced they have filed for bankruptcy. Arc 5 Limited were founded in 2020 and have delivered 11 motorcycles to customers before entering liquidation proceedings. When you sell high-cost, low-volume bespoke products, it doesn't take many people letting you down to put you in a difficult position, founder and CEO Mark Truman explained. Exactly what's next for the brand remains unknown, with Truman adding, it's been tough, and I wouldn't wish this upon my worst enemy. Such a shame. Feel for Mark Truman and the guys that work there. Terrible when you've got, a dream and you're building a business and it doesn't work out. It was an amazing looking machine, but at 98 grand, surely there couldn't have been too much of a market for it. So maybe not a massive surprise that it's gone out of business, but always a shame to hear when that sort of thing happens. Right, next up, no ordinary adventure. This is the MV Agusta Enduro Veloce. We've already spoken about it, but they've actually tested it now, so I won't dwell on it too long, but we'll get to the verdict in a second. MV say this is a bike that can go from performing admirably on a racetrack to trekking up a mountain in the same day. So is it that good, and does it justify the still far from cheap estimated $21,800 price? Let's go straight to the verdict rather than look at more on that article. The verdict is, and this is coming from Carl Stevens, road tester. I think it's Carl. Yes, Carl Stevens. CFMoto on steroids, he says. The 931cc triple is blisteringly fast and sounds amazing, while the bike handles like a CFMoto on steroids. Hopefully they've not done that thing like Triumph did with the 900 Tiger, where they made the triple sound like a twin. Absolute disaster. I love the sound of a triple, I love the smoothness. Making that like a twin so you can ride it off-road easier. Backward step. Triumph, please undo that and make future 900s sound like triples again. Anyway, back to the MV. It's not the most comfortable machine in the world thanks to the hard seat and the vibey motor, nor is it the most confidence-inspiring off-road either. Okay, so not exactly a glowing review then. So yeah, maybe save your $21,800 and do buy that GS after all. Okay, the GS might be not to everyone's taste looks-wise, but it is undeniably an amazing bike to ride. This looks lovely, but I repeat, it's not the most comfortable machine. It's got a hard seat and a vibey motor, and it's not confidence-inspiring off-road either. So yeah, maybe best avoided. Short-lived me love for the MV Agusta, lasted about 10 minutes. Oh well. Cruising for a bruising, affordable A2 legal cruisers pack plenty of punch, style and substance. This is the Eliminator 500 from Kawasaki we mentioned earlier, against the Honda Rebel, a bike that I don't like the look of, I have to say, but I know are very popular, and the new Kawasaki Eliminator. Not entirely sure why I've highlighted this one actually, but let's go straight to the verdict from John Hurry. I completely understand why the Rebel has been such a hit for Honda, as it's so wild, so out there and unique that you can't help but make you smile. It didn't make me smile when I rode it, I didn't like it at all. But take it out of town and its weak front brake, terrible shocks and skittish feel quickly let the side down. Yeah, I'm with you there. The Enfield is more planted, but this bulk also makes it feel slow and a little cumbersome in comparison. Overall, the Kawasaki ticks all the right boxes for the cruiser at this end of the market. Fun to ride, easy going and also stylish. It's an A2 legal mini custom that makes you smile, with a price that also appeals compared to US rivals. So the Kawasaki 6,506 is the cheapest of the three here. It undercuts both the Honda and the Enfield shotgun. Haven't ridden the shotgun yet, but I've got one coming in a month or two, so quite fancy a go on this, I must admit. I can't remember the name. What's the other, the Enfield cruiser, which I rode recently. I didn't like the look of it very much, but actually it rode really well. I think the shotgun might be in that same category, although I don't dislike the look of the shotgun. We'll see when it comes. Yeah, so there we go. They like the Kawasaki Eliminator. Fair enough. Last story here. Oh, talking of Triumph Tigers. Tiger 1200 GT has good vibes. Triumph flagship adventure bike gains smoother T-plane triple and push-button low seat height. Triumph's premium road-biased adventure bike was fully overhauled in 2022, but for some it was too lumpy, turning it into an unpleasant vibration at cruising speed. Worse, the motor could stall at low revs. For 2024, Triumph say engine mods have cured both issues, and they've added a push-button preload reducer to drop seat height at low speed and standstill, all to make the Tiger GT tamer day by day. Well, this is good news. I love the look of the big Triumph Tiger 1200. Do you remember when it was launched last year, or the year before? There was big fanfare and they were saying this is the bike that's going to beat the GS. Everybody was very much looking forward to it. They were implying it's going to be faster, it's going to be lighter, all that sort of thing. And then, of course, BMW bring out the new GS, which take the crown back again on those stats anyway. So once again, Triumph finding themselves playing catch-up, no more so demonstrated than by having this now push-button preload reducer. This is in direct response to people like, well, first Harley Davidson with the Pan America did it. They had one that automatically lowered. BMW with the new GS do it. They have an automatic ride height reduction feature if you spec that up, which is brilliant and works really well. Does it without you having to intervene. But if you buy the Triumph or you buy the Ducati Multistrada, which don't have those features, they've now programmed it by software upgrade. You can press a button and the bike will lower a bit. So really it's a bit gimmicky, it sounds it to me, and a bit like hassler, because you've got to remember to press the button. So it could catch you out, I think. But anyway, hopefully you know, the improvements they made to the engine as well is going to bring this a little bit closer to the BMW. Maybe in the next iteration it'll gain front-facing radar as well. It's got radar on some variants of the bike, but it only does the blind spot mirrors. Doesn't do active cruise control for some reason I don't quite understand. Anyway, let's read what it says here in the verdict from Simon Hargreaves, one of my favourite of all journalists, up there with Nevesy as far as I'm concerned, as my two favourites. The changes don't sound significant, but the difference is the riding experience. Oh, sorry, I'll say that again. The changes don't sound significant, but the difference to the riding experience really is. It makes you wonder why Triumph didn't make them like this in the first place. They've sold over 14,000 Tiger 1200s since 2022, but on this basis they might have sold even more. So Simon very much a fan of the new bike. There was also a video out on this I watched last week on Bennett's Bike Social that Simon was presenting. He obviously went to the launch, I assume, and he goes into a lot of depth on the new Triumph Tiger 1200. He seems to really like it. Great video. If you haven't seen it, go and watch that one. But yeah, this now, in the days of the new GS, I've already said I don't like the looks of it very much, although I like some of the tech on it. This to me looks like how an adventure bike should look. Nothing wrong with that front end. Give it radar cruise control, and I'll be very tempted by one of them when I'm next buying an adventure bike. I'm still actually quite tempted by them, to be fair. I haven't ridden this latest version, and I don't think I've got it in the diary. I've got the new Tiger 900 coming soon, which I'm looking forward to riding because I've ridden that bike a lot in the past. But yeah, I'd like to go on this as well at some point if you're listening Triumph. Right, one more paper to whiz through, and then we'll get on to parish notices. How are we doing for time? Okay, I'm waffling on a bit, so we'll whiz through this. First off, look at this bargain here. I don't often pick out these deals of the week, but this one leapt out at me. I've highlighted it here. Kawasaki Ninja 1000 SX, brand new bike, touring bike. I made a video about it a little while ago. I'll put a link in the corner. Absolutely love this. On sale for £9,999. So that's £2,350 off of list price. So, you know, 20% reduction, or thereabouts, 18%, something like that. Amazing. I just think that is great value. If you're interested in a touring bike, you don't want to follow the crowd and you want something that's good value for money, all day comfortable, good tech, lovely looking, smooth, you cannot go wrong with the Kawasaki Ninja 1000 SX, and at that price, an absolute bargain. So I thought worth pointing out. Right, next up. Now this is an interesting story, not specifically a motorcycle related story, but it does affect us as riders. Phone users beware, new AI cameras capable of detecting mobile use at the wheel. This is great news, I think. A new type of speed camera which uses artificial intelligence to detect and prosecute motorists using their mobile at the wheel is being rolled out across 10 police forces in England in a bid to eradicate the problem. Cameras which began popping up in England in 2021 are now being used across Durham, Greater Manchester, Humberside, Staffordshire, West Mercia, Northamptonshire, Wiltshire, Norfolk, Thames Valley and Sussex police force areas. Alongside those using a mobile phone, they can also detect speed as well as drivers not wearing a seatbelt. Each unit has multiple cameras and give the most complete view of drivers and passengers. Drivers can be fined up to £500 for not wearing a seatbelt, and mobile phone users can get 6 points and a fine of up to £1,000 if they're caught. So these cameras basically peer into your car and see what you're doing with your hands. So incredible. I don't know how it gets triggered. I mean, again, I assume that's where the AI comes in. It knows when it sees somebody playing with a phone as opposed to anything else. Then you're going to get a fine. So, you know, you shouldn't be using your phone at the wheel, should you? I'm sure we've probably all done it at some point, but I really try hard not to. So this is good if people start getting caught for that, because how many times do you see a car, when you're out on your bike, you see a car that's being a bit wayward and a bit erratic, you think that looks like a bit of a tricky driver. You look in and they're on their phone. Happens a lot to me. So anything that helps reduce that, good thing for safety all round. All right, next up. Ooh, your big smoothie. Triumph's 2024 Tiger 1200 Rally gets fewer vibes and lower seat height at the push of the button. So I won't go into detail here because this is basically the off-road version of the Tiger 1200 we just talked about. It's Simon Hargreaves again. Let's just see what he said. Low speed behaviour is much improved. I'm just picking out some highlights here. Active preload reduction is a bit of a gimmick because you have to press the button, so it's not particularly active. Now the Tiger Rally feels more than a match for BMW's R1300 GS, comes in at 18,295 as well. So lots of the features on the Triumph come as standard for that price. With the GS, you have to spec them up. So once again, if you're in the adventure bike market, it's worth taking now another look at the Triumph Tiger 1200, which suddenly is starting to look more attractive, and it certainly is a handsome looking bike, I think. Right, last story before we get on to parish notices. It's new, but is it worth it? New 450 is no longer a dirty secret. This is CFMoto again, who we mentioned earlier on in Bike News, remember? The 450 MT packs big adventure bike features and feel into a bargain A2 package. Now this just looks lovely, doesn't it? It looks like a proper adventure bike again. It's only a 450 though, so it might be a little bit underpowered, I guess. Let's read what it says. The 450 MT might be CFMoto's best bike yet, packing tempting features, finish and ride into a sub 6k package, less than 6 grand this. None of the expected downsides of a Chinese machine. The 449cc, this is what I mean by CFMoto, we should take them seriously. I think they're making good machines. It's got a 449cc parallel twin. It's the highest specs in its class. It's got adjustable KYB suspension, TFT dash with Bluetooth, switchable ABS and traction control, adjustable screen, radial brake and tubeless wheels, and it costs £5,699. The new Royal Enfield Himalayan is £550 more in a comparable spec. And as much as I quite like the look of the new Himalayan compared to the old Himalayan, the new Himalayan doesn't look as nice as this. So if you're in the market for a cheap off-roader, check out the CFMoto 450. I think that is looking good. All right, time for... Yep, a look at what's coming up on the channel thanks to parish notices. I'm old school, so I've got the notebook out here. Before we get into what's coming up, must just say thank you to everybody that sent their good wishes to me via Instagram, because I had last week my second operation on my shoulder, and you can see I'm waving my arm about. All is going well so far, touch wood. It's a long road to recovery, this sort of thing. 6 to 9 months for it to get back to sort of 95% functional, but I'm in a lot less pain, and I was riding a motorcycle within 3 days of the operation. Absolutely incredible, so really chuffed how that's gone. So thank you to everybody that sent me messages via Instagram and so on, wishing me well. So thank you very much. And luckily I haven't had to take time off, significant time off riding the bike. So I made a few videos beforehand that I was going to publish during my sort of recovery period, but in fact I haven't really needed to use too many of those. So that's great. Thank you for that. Other thing, not much time left now to get your ABR festival tickets if you haven't done so already. Don't forget, 28th to the 30th of June, Britain's best motorcycling festival, or I think it is anyway. If you use the code TMF5 at checkout, you'll get 5% off your tickets. Well worth having. If you've not been to the ABR festival before, do come along and say hello if you see me and Mrs. Fly wandering about. Right, coming up on the Missenden Flyer then, through the month of May, the next video you'll see on Saturday is going to be that Honda CB650R E-Clutch review. Haven't made that yet, so I can't put up a picture of the actual thumbnail because I don't get that bike for a few more days, but that'll be coming up on Saturday. After that, on the 8th of May, I'm going to make a video, again, not strictly motorcycling, but it's if you're interested in vlogging or starting a YouTube channel, I'm going to be talking about why I've ditched GoPros in favour of what I'm using here to record this, the Osmo Action 4. That's coming up on the 8th of May. In short, just makes your life a lot easier and it's a lot more reliable than the GoPro, so that's a bit of a spoiler alert, but there's more to it than that, so that video's coming up. On the 11th of May, much requested next edition of Biker Scram with Jeff and Dan. Been out with the guys. We've done a bit of riding and a bit of eating, so that's coming up on the 11th. On the 15th is my first ride review of the BMW S1000 XR. What a beautiful machine that is. So looking forward to sharing that one with you. On the 18th, yeah, something a little bit different. Lots of people ask for advice on how we go about touring, how do we plan stuff, what do we pack, how do we wash our clothes on the move, all that sort of thing. So I'm going to make a bit of a series about how we do all that, starting off with how to get your clothes dry when you're on tour. So that's coming up on the 18th. If you're going on tour this summer, you might be interested to watch that one. On the 22nd, it's my final video with the new BMW R1300 GS. Might turn out to be a little bit controversial, I don't know, but keep your eyes pinned for that one on the 22nd. On the 25th, it's a welcome back to Kit Corner on the channel. That's where I basically go in the garage and I'll review something. This time it's something that has been asked so many times. It's on my old favourite, my rucker kit, the Nivala 2, that you see me use on all my tours basically. When we went to Alaska, me and Mrs. Fly were wearing our rucker kit, Japan, Portugal, Spain. We've ridden it with it all over the world for the last couple of years. It's an expensive bit of kit. People ask us if it's worth the money. My full review coming up on the 25th in a new Kit Corner. And then the next bike news, make a date in your diary. It's the 29th of May. All right, that's it for now. Hope you found that of interest. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Until then, this has been the Missenden Flyer. Cheerio.
Hey kids, we're the Missenden Flyers.